My name is Jack Davenport. I'm 43 years old, I'm a master electrician, and I own Davenport Electric on Chapman Highway in Knoxville, Tennessee. Started as an apprentice at 18 because college wasn't in the cards, and I liked working with my hands. Got my journeyman license at 22, my master at 26. Bought a used van, printed up business cards at the Kinko's on Kingston Pike, and started pulling wire for anyone who'd hire me. 17 years later, I've got 14 employees, contracts with 3 of the biggest builders in Knox County, and I make about $180,000 a year. I still show up at 6 in the morning. I still pull wire on big jobs, and I still have calluses and scars on my hands. I was married for 16 years to a woman named Brooke. 2 kids, Dylan, 14, and Sophie, 11. We lived in a 4-bedroom Craftsman on Westwood Drive in Sequoia Hills that we bought in 2012 when the market was still recovering. I rewired the whole thing myself, replaced every panel, every outlet, every switch, ran new service from the pole, built the back deck out of cedar, finished the basement, installed the kitchen cabinets with my brother Hank Jr. helping on weekends. Every single inch of that house had my work in it. My sweat was literally in the walls. I thought I had a good life. I did have a good life. What I didn't have was the full picture. On a Thursday afternoon in April, my foreman called me from a condo on Jackson Avenue, and the full picture arrived. Thursday afternoon, April. I was at the shop on Chapman Highway doing billing, the part of owning a business that nobody tells you about, the hours of spreadsheets and invoices and wondering why a guy who's good with his hands is spending half his life staring at QuickBooks. My phone rang. Luis Garza, my foreman. Luis has been with me for 9 years. He's the first guy I hired when the company got big enough to need a real crew. Mexican-American, grew up in Morristown, built like a fire hydrant, can pull wire faster than anyone I've ever seen. He's also one of the most loyal human beings on the planet. If Luis says something, it's true. If Luis says he needs you, you go. Boss, you need to come see something. I can't say it on the phone. I didn't ask questions. I drove to the Old City District in downtown Knoxville, the Emory Building on Jackson Avenue, an old warehouse that got converted into upscale condos a few years back. We had the electrical contract for a gut renovation on Unit 4B. Nice place. Exposed brick, high ceilings, the kind of condo that young professionals buy when they want to feel like they live in Brooklyn but don't want to leave Tennessee. Luis was waiting in the master bedroom. He looked like a man who'd eaten something that didn't agree with him. "What?" I said. He pointed to the nightstand. On it was a framed photograph. The photograph was of my wife. Not a group photo. Not a snapshot from a party. A framed photograph. The kind you put next to your bed so it's the last thing you see before you fall asleep. Brooke, smiling, looking off to the side. She was wearing the blue dress she'd worn to our 10th anniversary dinner at the Orangery. Next to the photograph, a bottle of perfume. Tom Ford Soleil Blanc. The one I'd bought her for Christmas. $87 at Ulta. I remembered the price because I'd stood in that store for 20 minutes feeling like an idiot while a 19-year-old salesgirl helped me pick it out. "This one's really popular," she'd said. Yeah. Apparently it was popular at 2 different addresses. Luis opened the closet door. Women's clothes. Not a lot. Maybe a dozen pieces. But I recognized them. A green dress I'd asked about 2 months ago, and Brooke said she'd donated to Goodwill. A pair of heels she claimed were at the shoe repair. Blouses and jeans and a silk robe that I'd never seen before, but that clearly belonged in this closet, not ours. "I pulled the permit to see who owns this unit," Luis said. He handed me a piece of paper. The permit application, with the owner's name printed clearly at the top. Kevin Ashford. I knew the name the way you know a name you heard once and filed away under "doesn't matter." Kevin Ashford was an account VP at Meridian Partners, Brooke's agency. I'd met him once at the agency Christmas party 2 years ago. He was tall, expensive suit, big smile, handshake that lasted about 3 seconds too long. He called every man in the room brother, which is something that men who've never built anything with their hands like to do. I remember thinking he was an asshole. Turns out my instincts were working just fine. My wife had a second home, with another man. Her perfume was on his dresser. Her photo was on his nightstand. Her clothes were in his closet. She'd built a whole parallel life in a condo on Jackson Avenue while I was crawling through attics and pulling wire and coaching Dylan's Little League team and building Sophie's bookshelf. I stood in that bedroom for about 60 seconds. Luis watched me. I could feel him watching me, trying to read my face. My face didn't give him anything. I'd learned a long time ago in this trade. The wires don't care how you feel. Shaking hands get you shocked. Steady hands get the job done. How's the rewire going? I asked. Luis blinked. On schedule. Should be done by Thursday. Good. Finish the job. Invoice the owner. Don't tell anyone about this. Boss? Luis. Not a word. He nodded. Luis understood chain of command. He understood loyalty. He also understood that what I needed from him in that moment was not sympathy or advice. I needed him to do his job and keep his mouth shut. I walked out of the condo, down the stairs, through the lobby, into my truck, a 2021 Ford F250 white with Davenport Electric on the door in blue and gold. I drove south on Chapman Highway, pulled into the lot behind the Pilot gas station near the Alcoa Highway interchange, parked between a dumpster and a concrete barrier, and sat there. I didn't cry. I don't say that to sound tough. I say it because what I felt wasn't sadness. It was something heavier, something that sat on my chest like a cinder block. My hands were on the steering wheel and they were steady. My heart was pounding. I could hear it in my ears like a hammer on sheet metal. But my hands were steady. 25 years of working live circuits. Steady hands, or you get hurt. I should tell you about my wife. Or the woman who used to be my wife. I met Brooke Calloway at a friend's barbecue in 2005. I was 25, sunburned, wearing a Carhartt shirt with a hole in the sleeve. She was 21, just out of UT with a marketing degree, drinking a gin and tonic while everyone else had beer. Heels at a barbecue. I walked up to her and said, "You look like you're at the wrong party." She looked me up and down and said, "You look like you built the deck we're standing on." I had, actually, 2 weekends ago. She laughed. I liked her laugh. It wasn't polite. It was real, and a little too loud, and she covered her mouth when she did it. We dated for 2 years. Got married in 2007. I loved her the way a man loves a woman he wants to build a life with. I showed up. I was faithful. I worked. I built her things with my hands. I thought that was enough. For 14 years it was. For the last 2, it wasn't. Brooke worked her way up at Meridian Partners, a mid-size advertising agency in downtown Knoxville. Account director, polished, heels, blazers, client dinners at restaurants where they charge you $18 for a salad. She used to joke that she married up. I used to joke that I married above my pay grade. She'd laugh and say, "You married real." Somewhere around 2020, she stopped laughing when she said it. Dylan was born in 2009. Sophie in 2012. Dylan is my shadow. Looks like me, acts like me, says little, observes everything. He plays first base on the freshman baseball team, and he's got a swing that'll either send him to college ball or save him a lot of money on batting cages. He's 14, and he already knows more about people than most adults. Sophie is the bomb going off in the next room. Loud, funny, daddy's girl from birth. She used to fall asleep on my chest when she was a baby, and when she got too big for that, she'd sit on my lap and read to me instead. She reads everything. I built her a bookshelf for her room, floor to ceiling, cherry wood, and she filled it in 2 years. Those kids were the best thing I ever made. Better than any house I wired, any building I lit up, any contract I landed. And their mother had a second apartment with another man, with her perfume and her clothes and a framed photo by the bed like it was their actual life. I sat in that parking lot for an hour. I watched trucks come and go at the gas station. A kid in a Waffle House uniform smoked a cigarette behind the dumpster and scrolled his phone. The sun was going down behind the ridge to the west. It was a beautiful evening. I noticed that, and I hated that I noticed it, because beautiful evenings were supposed to be for people whose wives weren't keeping a second apartment with another man. At some point, my brain stopped spinning and locked onto a track. Not an emotional track. A procedural one. I'm an electrician. I solve problems in sequence. You don't wire a house all at once. You start with the panel, then the circuits, then the runs, then the boxes, then the trim, then the testing. One step at a time. Don't skip ahead. Don't go back. And don't, ever, work on a live circuit when you're upset. Step 1. I picked up my phone and called Hank Jr. Hank is 45. Also an electrician. He runs the commercial side of things now, works for a big outfit in Maryville. He got divorced in 2019 after his wife Charlene got caught texting her personal trainer messages that left very little to the imagination. Hank handled it the way every Davenport man handles betrayal. Quietly, efficiently, and without mercy. Hank, it's happening to me. I didn't explain. I didn't have to. Every Davenport boy grew up watching his mother's absence. Every Davenport boy knew what it meant. It meant the woman you trusted decided that trust wasn't worth honoring. It meant the world you built was sitting on a crack you didn't see. It meant you were about to become your father. What do you need? Hank said. A lawyer. The meanest one you know. Dale Womack. Office on Gay Street. He handled my divorce. He's a bastard, Jack, but he's your bastard. Expensive. Worth every penny. What's he charge? $6,000 retainer. Don't blink. Pay it. I called Dale Womack from the parking lot. His secretary had left for the day, but his voicemail gave a cell number for emergencies. I called the cell. He picked up on the second ring. Womack. My name is Jack Davenport. My brother Hank used you for his divorce. I need the same service. What happened? My wife's been having an affair, at least a year. She has clothes and personal items at his apartment. I have photos. You didn't confront her? No. You didn't go home and start a fight? No. Good. Come to my office tomorrow morning at 8. Bring your last 3 tax returns, your bank statements, a list of every asset you own or co-own, and your marriage certificate if you can find it. Don't say a word to your wife tonight. Can you do that? I'm not the fighting type. Good. The quiet ones usually win. I hung up. I drove home. Brooke was making dinner, chicken stir-fry, the one she does with bell peppers and teriyaki sauce that the kids love. The kitchen smelled like garlic and sesame oil. She smiled at me when I walked in. Hey, you're late. Job ran over. Showers waiting, dinner in 20. I showered. I ate dinner with my family. Dylan talked about a pop quiz in geometry. Sophie described, in extraordinary detail, a drama involving 2 girls in her class who were both wearing the same shirt on picture day. Brooke laughed at Sophie's story. I watched her laugh. Same laugh she had at that barbecue, 18 years ago. Too loud, hand over her mouth. She'd laughed like that in a condo on Jackson Avenue too. In a bed that wasn't ours. With a man who called everyone brother. I ate my chicken stir-fry. I helped Sophie with her math homework. I told Dylan good night. I sat on the couch next to Brooke and watched half an episode of something on Hulu that I couldn't have described 5 minutes later. She leaned against my shoulder. I let her. It took everything I had, but I let her. At 10 o'clock, she went up to bed. I told her I'd be up in a few minutes. I went to the garage and sat in my truck with the door closed and my hands on my knees, and I breathed. Just breathed. In and out. Steady. The last normal night. Except it wasn't normal at all. It was the longest performance of my life. Friday morning. 7:45 a.m. I pulled into a parking deck on Gay Street and walked into the offices of Womack and Associates, Family Law. Dale Womack was a short man in his 60s with a white beard, reading glasses on a chain, and the kind of face that looks like it's already won whatever argument you're about to start. His office was full of books and files and a framed photo of Dale shaking hands with a judge. He didn't offer me coffee. He didn't make small talk. He sat down, pulled out a yellow legal pad and said, "Tell me everything." I told him everything. The condo, the photo, the perfume, the clothes, the name on the permit. He wrote it all down without expression, like a doctor taking symptoms. "Tennessee is an equitable distribution state," he said when I finished. "Fault matters here. Adultery is grounds for divorce and it affects alimony. This is good for you, Jack. In Tennessee, a spouse who's been proven to have committed adultery can be denied alimony entirely. If she's the lower earner, and it sounds like she is, That's the card that ends the game. I don't want to drag this out. You won't have to. Once she sees the evidence, her attorney will tell her to settle. If she has a good attorney, this is over in 90 days. If she has a bad one, it takes 6 months and costs her more money. He leaned back. What do you want? The house. I built half of it myself. Done. What else? The kids, primary custody. She can have weekends and holidays. In Tennessee, courts favor the primary caretaker. Who does the day-to-day? School pickups, doctor's appointments, that sort of thing? Split. She does pickups, I do drop-offs. But I cook dinner most nights. I'm home by 5:30. I do homework help, bedtime routine. She's at client dinners 2 or 3 nights a week. Those client dinners are going to work in your favor. If she's regularly absent in the evenings, we build the case that you're the more present parent. Plus, if she was spending some of those client dinners at a condo on Jackson Avenue, he let that hang. My business stays out of it. The company is mine. When did you start it? Before the marriage. Even better, premarital asset. She has no claim to the business itself, though she may argue that marital earnings grew it. We'll handle that. He stood up. We shook hands. Go get me more evidence, he said. Photographs, phone records, anything you can get without breaking into anything or installing surveillance. Text messages if you can access a shared account. And Jack, stay calm. Don't confront her until I tell you. The element of surprise is your biggest asset right now. When do I confront her? When I say so. But given what you've described, I'd say Monday. No reason to let this fester. I paid the $6,000 retainer with a check from my business account, wrote it off as legal consulting. I'd move it to personal later. Right now, I didn't want Brooke seeing an unusual charge on our joint account. That afternoon, I went back to the condo. Brooke was at work. Luis and 2 of my guys were finishing up the rough-in on the kitchen circuit. Luis gave me a look when I walked past. I gave him nothing back. I went into the master bedroom. This time I was methodical. I photographed the nightstand, both sides. Her photo. His watch stand, with a Tag Heuer on it that probably cost more than my first van. The perfume. I opened the closet and photographed every piece of her clothing, getting the labels visible. I checked the dresser drawers, her lingerie in the top left, folded neatly. His boxer briefs in the top right. I photographed that too. The nightstand drawer. I opened it. Inside, a box of condoms, a half bottle of Malbec, 2 wine glasses, and a card. I picked up the card. It was a Hallmark, cream-colored, no design on the front. Inside, in Brooke's handwriting, the same handwriting I'd seen on anniversary cards and birthday cards and sticky notes on the fridge for 16 years, it read, "To my favorite escape. 1 year. Here's to many more. B. 1 year." She'd been doing this for at least a year. While I changed the oil in her Audi. While I built Sophie's bookshelf. While I took Dylan to batting practice. While I wired a remodel in West Knoxville and came home smelling like drywall dust and kissed her hello. For a year. Maybe longer. 1 year was just the anniversary she bothered to mark with a card. I photographed the card. Both sides. I put everything back exactly as I found it. I left the condo and walked past Luis. "Invoice is ready," he said. "You want to see it before I send it? Mark it up 40%. 40. Jack, the contract. Mark it up. 40. I'll deal with the conversation." Luis didn't argue. He'd been with me 9 years. He knew when I was making a business decision and when I was making a personal one. I got in my truck. My hands were steady. Saturday morning. Brooke took the kids to Dylan's travel baseball practice and Sophie's soccer game. She'd be gone until at least noon. I had the house to myself. I went to our bedroom closet. Her side. I went through every piece of clothing with the patience of a man running wire through a finished wall. Slow, careful, don't leave marks. I cross-referenced what was there with what I remembered. The green wrap dress. Gone. She'd said Goodwill. Lie. A pair of black heels she'd worn to the Meridian Partners Gala in March. Gone. She'd said the heel broke and she threw them away. Lie. 3 blouses I could picture in my mind but couldn't find on hangers. all at the condo, all waiting for a life that didn't include me. I checked her car next. The Audi Q5, a 2022, white, that I'd given her for our 15th anniversary. 51 payments left at $642 a month. I popped the trunk. Under the floor mat, behind the spare tire kit, was a small black duffel bag I'd never seen before. I opened it. Inside, a black lace teddy that I had never seen her wear. A toothbrush. A travel-sized tube of toothpaste. Mascara. Lipstick. A change of clothes. Jeans. A white t-shirt. Underwear. A go bag. My wife had a bag packed and ready in the trunk of the car I gave her so she could drive to another man's apartment at any time, on any excuse, and look exactly the way she wanted to look when she got there. I put the bag back. I replaced the floor mat. I closed the trunk. I went inside and logged into our Verizon account. Her phone number showed heavy text and call activity to one number. Dozens of texts a day, calls in the evening, calls during lunch. Some calls at 10, 11 at night, when I was in bed and she was finishing up some work emails in the living room. I wrote down the number. I'd hand it to Dale on Monday. Then I drove to Lonis Drive, my father's house. The same house where he raised 3 boys alone. The same cracked driveway, the same chain link fence, the same American flag on a pole by the front door that Hank Sr. replaced every year on Memorial Day. Dad was in the kitchen. He was 68 now, retired, living alone. He looked older every time I saw him, but in that stubborn way where the body gets smaller but the man inside doesn't shrink at all. He was drinking coffee and reading the Knoxville News Sentinel at the table. The oak table, the same one. That table needs explaining. My father bought it secondhand from a church sale in 1985 for $40. Oak. 4 chairs, 1 wobbly leg he never fixed. In 1987, my brothers and I were sitting at that table when our dad came home from work and told us our mother wasn't coming back. I was 7. My brother Hank Jr. was 9. My brother Travis was 5 and didn't understand what was happening. Dad sat us down and said, "Your mother left this morning. She left a note. She says she can't do this anymore. I don't know what that means, and I'm not going to pretend I do. But I'm here, you 3 are here, and we're going to eat dinner and do homework and go to bed. Tomorrow, we'll do it again." That was the whole speech. Hank Davenport Sr. was a pipe fitter, not a poet. He didn't cry in front of us. He didn't badmouth her. He just raised 3 boys by himself in a 3-bedroom ranch on Lonis Drive, and he did it without complaint, without a woman, and without ever once suggesting that what our mother did was anything other than what it was. She quit. I've spoken to my mother maybe 5 times in 36 years. She lives in Oregon now. Or she did last I heard. Travis talks to her sometimes. Hank Jr. and I don't. That's not anger anymore. It's just math. She subtracted herself from the equation. I honored her decision. So now you understand why I was sitting at that table on a Saturday morning, about to tell my father that history was repeating itself. I sat down across from him. "What's wrong?" he said. Didn't look up from the paper. "How do you know something's wrong? You drove over here on a Saturday morning without the kids. Something's wrong." I told him. All of it. The condo, the photo, the clothes, the anniversary card, the go bag. He listened the way Hank Davenport Sr. has always listened. Completely still, eyes on mine, face like concrete. When I was done, he folded the newspaper, set it aside, got up, opened the cabinet above the stove, and pulled out a bottle of George Dickel No. 12. Poured 2 glasses. Not a lot, 2 fingers each. Slid one across the table to me. "You know what to do," he said. "You've always known." "Yeah. Don't drag it out. Your mother dragged it out with me for months before she left. She was checked out long before she walked out the door. The waiting was worse than the leaving. Every night I'd lie in bed next to her, knowing she didn't want to be there and not knowing why. That's a kind of torture they don't have a word for. So don't do that to yourself. Just do it. Tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. Let the kids have their Sunday. They're about to lose something they don't even know they have right now. Give them one more good day. Monday then. Monday." We sat at that table and drank our whiskey. The same table where his wife's goodbye note had sat 36 years ago. The same table where he'd fed us breakfast the next morning like nothing had changed because, for us, it couldn't change. He was all we had. I finished my whiskey. He didn't offer another. He walked me to the door, put his hand on my shoulder, the most physical affection Hank Sr. was capable of, and said, "You're going to be fine. Your kids are going to be fine. That's all that matters." I drove home. Sunday, the last good day. I woke up early and made pancakes. Chocolate chip for Sophie, plain with maple syrup for Dylan. Brooke slept in. I didn't wake her. I loaded the kids in my truck and we drove to the Smoky Mountains. The drive from Knoxville to the Laurel Falls trailhead is about 45 minutes if you don't hit tourist traffic on the parkway. We hit tourist traffic. Sophie sang along to every song on the radio regardless of whether she knew the words. Dylan sat shotgun and looked out the window at the mountains. He had his AirPods in one ear, which was his compromise between being present and being 14. We hiked Laurel Falls, 2.6 miles round trip, mostly flat, easy enough for Sophie, beautiful in April with everything blooming. The falls were running hard from spring rain. Sophie took about 40 pictures with my phone and declared each one the best one yet. Dylan stood at the base of the falls and watched the water without saying anything. I stood next to him. The mist was cold on my face. I watched my two kids, one taking pictures of everything, one standing still and taking it all in. And I thought about how they had no idea what was about to happen to their family. They were standing at a waterfall on a Sunday in April, and they thought this was just a regular weekend. It was the last regular weekend they'd ever have. "You okay, Dad? You're being weird." "I'm good, bud. Just thinking." "About what?" "About how I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I get to hike with my two favorite people." Dylan didn't buy it. He looked at me the way he looks at everything. Straight on, measuring, calculating. He's 14 and he's already got bullshit radar better than most adults. But he let it go. He's also got the Davenport sense of when to push and when to leave it alone. He left it alone. We ate lunch at the Pancake Pantry in Gatlinburg. The wait was 40 minutes, because it's the Pancake Pantry and there's always a wait. Sophie got chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream, her second stack of the day, and spent 20 minutes building a detailed legal argument for why pancakes should be reclassified as a dinner food. Her case was surprisingly well-reasoned. She cited precedent. "Denny's serves them all day, Dad." She cited nutritional value. "They have eggs and milk in them. That's basically health food." She cited consumer demand. "I would eat them for dinner every single night." "Denied," I said. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that I'm the judge and the jury and my verdict is final." She threw a blueberry at me. I caught it and ate it. Dylan almost smiled. That drive home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat. Dylan was in the front, AirPods in, watching the mountains slide past. "Dad." "Yeah?" "Whatever's going on, you'll handle it. You always do." I looked at my son. 14 years old. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew something was. And his response wasn't to panic or pry. His response was to tell his old man that he had faith in him. I couldn't talk for about 30 seconds. Not because I was going to cry, because something was in my throat, a knot, like a wire you can't pull through, and I had to wait for it to pass. "Thanks, bud." That was our last good Sunday. I dropped them off at home. Brooke was on the couch in yoga pants, wine glass in hand, watching something on Hulu. She smiled at me. I nodded. I went to the garage and sat in my truck for 10 minutes with the engine off and the door closed. Tomorrow I would blow up this family. Tomorrow I would say the words that would change my kids' lives forever. Tonight, I sat in my truck and listened to nothing and let the silence be the last silence before the storm. Monday. I called Hank Sr. at 6 in the morning. "Can you take the kids tonight? I told Brooke you need help with the gutters and the kids want to see Grandpa." "What time?" 4:30. "I'll drop them off on my way to the shop. I'll have dinner ready." I went to work. I ran a panel upgrade on a new build in Farragut. I talked to suppliers. I approved an invoice. I ate a turkey sandwich from Subway at my desk. I was on autopilot, but the autopilot was running clean. Steady hands, steady mind. I'd made my decision Friday. Everything since then was just waiting for the clock to run out. At 4, I left the shop, drove home, told the kids to get their stuff. They were going to Grandpa's for dinner. Sophie was thrilled. She loves Hank Sr. because he lets her eat ice cream before dinner and doesn't tell anyone. Dylan grabbed his backpack without asking questions. They were out the door in 10 minutes. I dropped them at Lonis Drive. Hank Sr. met them on the porch. Sophie ran to him. Dylan walked up and shook his grandfather's hand. A new thing he'd started doing, wanting to be treated like a man. Hank shook it solemnly and said, "Good grip." Dylan beamed. Hank looked at me over the kids' heads. I gave him a small nod. He gave me one back. No words. We didn't need them. I drove home. Showered at the shop like I always do. Washed off the drywall dust and the sweat and the wire grease. Put on clean jeans, a flannel shirt, work boots. I looked at myself in the mirror at the shop. Same face I'd had for 43 years. Same jaw, same lines around the eyes, same look. By the end of tonight, that face would belong to a different man, a divorced man, a single father, a man whose wife had chosen someone else. I drove home, parked in the driveway, went inside, poured myself a Maker's Mark, 2 fingers, in a rocks glass that Sophie had given me for Father's Day 3 years ago. It had "World's Best Dad" printed on it in purple letters. I took one sip, sat at the kitchen table, waited. While I waited, I thought about the night before our wedding. I'd taken Brooke for a drive, up to a lookout on Chapman Highway where you can see the Smoky Mountains if the air is clear. I parked the truck and I said what I needed to say. If we get married tomorrow, I need you to know that there is one thing I will never get past. One thing. If you step out on me, if there's another man ever for any reason, it's over. Not "we'll work on it." Not counseling. Not a second chance. Over. I'll be fair with the money and I'll be a good father. But we will be done. I watched my dad get left and I promised myself I would never be in a position where a woman could do that to me. So I'm giving you the out right now. If you can't live with that rule, we don't walk down the aisle tomorrow. She was quiet for a long time. The mountains were turning purple in the last light. "Jack, I would never do that to you. I know you believe that. I don't just believe it. I feel the same way. If you ever cheated on me, I'd be gone so fast you'd think I was never there." Good. Then we understand each other. We got married the next day at Island Home Baptist Church. Hank Sr. was my best man. He wore a suit for the first time since his own wedding. He looked uncomfortable the entire time. During the reception, he pulled me aside and said, "She's a good one." That was the highest compliment Hank Davenport Sr. had ever paid a woman. I believed him. I believed her. I was an idiot, but I didn't know that yet. That was 16 years ago. And now I was sitting at the kitchen table in a house I built with my own hands, waiting to end it. Brooke pulled into the driveway at 6:15. I heard her car door, her heels on the front walk. She was in work clothes, gray blazer, black pants, heels. She looked good. She always looked good. That was part of the problem, or at least part of why it took me so long to see what was happening. She looked like a woman who had everything figured out. Turns out she did. She'd figured out how to have 2 lives and make both of them work. Until a rewiring job blew the whole thing open. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag on the counter. "Where are the kids?" "Your dad's. Sit down, Brooke." She looked at me. Something crossed her face. Not guilt. Not yet. Just the awareness that the temperature in the room was wrong. Like walking into a house where the breakers tripped and the air conditioning has been off for hours. You can feel it before you understand it. She sat down across from me. I put my phone on the table. Opened the photo gallery. First photo. Her framed photograph on the nightstand in Unit 4B. I turned the phone so she could see it. Her face changed. Not all at once. It was slow, like watching a fuse burn toward the charge. First confusion, then recognition. Then a color draining out of her cheeks that I can only describe as the shade of a person who just realized the floor beneath them is gone. I swiped. Her clothes in the closet. Swipe. The Tom Ford Soleil Blanc on the dresser next to his Tag Heuer. Swipe. The lingerie in the drawer. Swipe. The card. Her handwriting. To my favorite escape. 1 year. Here's to many more. B. My crew has been rewiring Kevin Ashford's condo on Jackson Avenue. Unit 4B, you know the one. She didn't speak. Her hands were flat on the table. I watched her fingers. They were trembling. Mine weren't. 1 year, Brooke, minimum. You've had a whole other life set up in that apartment while I was pulling wire and raising our kids and making payments on that Audi you drive to his place. Jack, I can explain. No. Please, just let me. No. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to sit at this table, the table I built, by the way, and listen to you explain why you've been screwing another man for a year. There is no explanation that changes what you did. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've got a go bag in the trunk of your car. Lingerie, toothbrush, makeup, a change of clothes. You've got perfume on his dresser and a framed photo on his nightstand. You wrote the man an anniversary card. An anniversary card, Brooke. You celebrated a year of screwing Kevin Ashford while being married to me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness at a work conference. This is a second marriage that I wasn't invited to. The crying started. I knew it would. I sat there and let it happen. I didn't reach for her hand. I didn't get up and hold her. I used to hold her when she cried, when her grandmother died, when she didn't get a promotion, when Sophie had a febrile seizure at age 2 and we spent 8 hours in the ER. I held her every time. That was a different man holding a different woman. The man at this table didn't have it in him, and the woman at this table hadn't earned it. Here's what's happening, I said. I'm divorcing you. Tennessee is a fault state. Adultery is grounds. My attorney is Dale Womack on Gay Street. He's filing the papers tomorrow morning. You'll hear from him by end of business. I want the house. I built half of it with my hands, and I'm not leaving it. The kids stay with me during the school year. Same school, same routine, same life. You get every other weekend, alternating holidays, and 2 weeks in the summer. You can't take my kids. I'm not taking them. You left them. You just didn't bother to actually leave. That one hit. I could see it land like a punch she didn't see coming. Her mouth opened and then closed, and she looked at the table, and I could see her trying to find the next argument, the next angle, the next play. She was an account director. She pitched for a living. She was looking for the pitch that would save this. We can go to counseling. Jack, this doesn't have to. I told you the night before we got married. Remember? Chapman Highway. The Overlook. I told you my one rule. I told you what would happen. And you said you felt the same way. You said if I ever cheated on you, you'd be gone so fast I'd think you were never there. You remember saying that? She remembered. I watched the memory hit her like a truck. Her eyes went somewhere else for a second. Back to that night, that overlook, that conversation. She'd been 23 and she'd meant every word. 16 years later, she'd broken every word. Pack a bag, I said. Go to your condo, or your mother's house, or Kevin's apartment. I don't care where. But you're not sleeping in this house tonight. Jack, we're done talking. She sat there for another minute. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just waited. And eventually she stood up and went upstairs, and I heard drawers opening and a suitcase coming off the top shelf of the closet and hangers sliding on the rod. 20 minutes. That's how long it took to pack a bag to leave a 16-year marriage. Probably the same amount of time it took her to pack that go bag in the trunk. She came downstairs with a suitcase, stopped at the front door, turned around. Her face was wrecked, mascara streaked, eyes swollen, nose red. She looked like a woman who'd just lost everything. I felt nothing. I was waiting to feel something, and it wasn't there. Just a flatness, like a circuit with no load. I love you, Jack. Yeah, I know you think you do. She left. I heard the Audi start. I heard the tires on the driveway. I heard her pull onto Westwood Drive and disappear into the neighborhood. The house was quiet. I finished my maker's mark. The one in the world's best dad glass. I poured another one. I sat in the house I'd wired and plumbed and framed and drywalled and painted and furnished, and filled with 16 years of memories that were now evidence in a divorce case. The bourbon was good. The house was quiet. My marriage was over. I called Hank Sr. It's done. How'd she take it? About how you'd expect. You all right? No, but I will be. The kids can stay here tonight. You should sleep. Yeah? I didn't sleep. I sat on the deck I built and drank bourbon and watched the stars over Sequoia Hills and tried to figure out the exact moment my wife decided I wasn't enough. I never figured it out. Some questions don't have answers. Some equations don't balance. You just move on. The aftermath was ugly. Not violent, not dramatic. Just the slow, grinding ugly of a life being divided into two smaller lives. Dale Womack went to work like the bastard he was. Within 48 hours, Brooke's attorney, a woman named Alicia Reeves from a firm on Henley Street, had received the full evidence package. Photos, phone records, the anniversary card. Dale told me later that Reeves called him that same afternoon. She took one look at the file and told her client to settle, Dale said. Smart attorney. She knows what happens when you take adultery evidence into a Knox County courtroom. Brooke didn't settle right away. She fought. Not the divorce. She knew that was coming. She fought the custody arrangement. She fought the house. She fought because that's what people do when they realize the consequences of what they've done are going to cost them everything they took for granted. Her mother, Linda Calloway, called me. Linda was a retired school teacher from Maryville who had always been polite to me in a way that let me know she thought her daughter could have done better. She called me on a Tuesday night. Jack, I know Brooke made a terrible mistake, but she's the mother of your children and she deserves to be treated with dignity. Linda, with all due respect, your daughter had a furnished apartment with another man. She wrote him an anniversary card. She kept a bag packed in her car. That's not a mistake. That's a lifestyle. And the dignity she deserves is exactly the dignity she showed me. None. You don't have to be cruel about this. I'm not being cruel. I'm being accurate. There's a difference. She hung up on me. I was fine with that. Linda Calloway had 3 opinions about everything and all 3 were wrong. Brooke's sister Wendy also weighed in. Wendy was 35, lived in Nashville, recently divorced herself. Though hers was a no-fault situation involving irreconcilable differences, which is what people say when they got married too young and ran out of things to talk about. Wendy sent me a long text message about both sides and the pressures Brooke was under and the emotional distance in the marriage. I read it. I didn't respond. There are no both sides when one side has a condo on Jackson Avenue. Meanwhile, Kevin Ashford got his invoice. Luis had marked up the condo rewire 40%, as I'd asked. The original job was quoted at $11,400, a fair price for a full condo rewire with new panel and updated fixtures. The revised invoice was $15,960. Kevin Ashford, who had probably never looked at a contractor's invoice in his life, noticed that the number was higher than expected and called our office. I picked up. This is Jack Davenport. Hey, yeah, this is Kevin Ashford. I'm calling about the invoice for the electrical work on my condo, Unit 4B on Jackson. The number seems higher than what was quoted. Mr. Ashford, the invoice is correct. We ran into some unforeseen complications during the rewire. The existing wiring in the master bedroom was not what we expected. Pause. I could hear him breathing. The master bedroom, right. I'm sure you understand. Sometimes when you open up a wall, you find things that weren't in the original plans. Unexpected connections. Things that shouldn't be there. My crew documented everything. Long pause. I see. The invoice is due in 30 days. If you'd prefer to dispute it, I can file a mechanic's lien on the property. I'd also be happy to discuss the project details with anyone who's interested. My foreman Luis kept excellent notes. Construction is a small world, brother. He paid the invoice in 24 hours, $15,960, wired directly to the Davenport Electric business account. I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel bad about it either. I felt like a man who sent an invoice and got paid. Business is business. But the real cost for Kevin Ashford was professional. Knoxville isn't Nashville. It isn't Memphis. It's a city where 200,000 people live and everybody knows everybody's cousin. The advertising community in Knoxville is even smaller. Maybe a few hundred people who all went to the same UT program, all attend the same AMA luncheons, all drink at the same 3 bars on Market Square. When a married account VP at one of the city's mid-size agencies is sleeping with a married account director at the same agency, it gets out. It always gets out. I didn't spread it. I didn't have to. Brooke told her friend Rachel, who told her husband, who mentioned it to a guy he worked with at another agency, who told his boss over beers. The construction grapevine did the rest. Luis told his brother-in-law, who was a drywall contractor, who told a plumber who'd done work at the Meridian Partners office, who told his foreman, who told the job site, and by the time the story had made its way through the Knox County construction network, Kevin Ashford's name was on every job site bulletin board in the county. Not literally, but close enough. Patricia Webb, the CEO of Meridian Partners, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who didn't care what her employees did on their own time until it walked through the front door of her agency. A married account VP sleeping with a married account director at the same company was a liability. HR issues. Favoritism concerns. Client perception. Patricia didn't fire Kevin. She reorganized him. His role was eliminated. His responsibilities were reassigned. He was offered a severance package that amounted to about 12 weeks of salary. Kevin took a job at a smaller agency in Chattanooga, 2 hours away. Lower title, lower pay. About 60% of what he'd been making at Meridian. Last I heard, he was doing digital marketing for regional car dealerships, from account VP at a respected mid-size firm to writing Facebook ads for used Hyundais. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy? There's something else worth mentioning. About 2 months after the divorce news spread, I was at Aubrey's on Kingston Pike having lunch with my estimator, a guy named Ray Puckett. A man walked up to the table. Late 40s, red face, looked like he hadn't slept in a month. "Are you Jack Davenport, the electrician?" "I am." "I heard about what happened with Ashford. I work at a firm in Chattanooga. He just got hired there. I want you to know, he tried the same thing with my wife at a conference in Nashville last year. She shut him down, but I only found out about it recently. The man's a predator." I looked at this guy, standing in a restaurant on a Tuesday afternoon, telling a stranger that his wife was almost the next target. "What's your name?" "Craig Hensley." "Craig, I appreciate you telling me that. If your wife ever needs to make a statement for the record, have her call my attorney, Dale Womack, Gay Street. She already talked to someone at Meridian's HR. Nothing came of it. It'll come of something now." Craig Hensley nodded, shook my hand, and left. I never followed up because I didn't need to. Kevin Ashford was building his own reputation all by himself, brick by brick, and the structure was going to collapse on him eventually without me lifting a finger. Some men are wrecking balls, others are condemned buildings. Kevin was the building. The other social casualty was Brooke's friend Rachel Klein. Rachel was Brooke's best friend from college. They'd been roommates at UT, bridesmaids in each other's weddings, the whole package. Rachel knew about the affair. She admitted it later. She'd known for at least 6 months. She'd helped Brooke pick out the clothes for the condo. She'd covered for Brooke on at least 3 occasions when Brooke told me she was at girls' night at Rachel's and was actually at Jackson Avenue. Rachel's husband, Mike, is a high school football coach. He and I used to grill together on 4th of July weekends. When Mike found out that his wife had been covering for Brooke's affair, he called me. "Jack, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know." "I believe you, Mike." Rachel says she was just being loyal to her friend. I told her that loyalty to a lie isn't loyalty. It's just lying with extra steps. Smart man. "We're in a rough spot over here. She's pissed I'm siding with you." I told her I'm not siding with anyone. I'm siding with the truth. Mike and Rachel worked it out. They're still married. But Mike and I don't do 4th of July anymore. Not because of anger, because some friendships exist inside a marriage, and when the marriage breaks, the friendship breaks too. Mike sends me a text on my birthday every year. I send one on his. That's the shape of it now. The divorce took 4 months. Dale Womack was worth every cent of his $6,000 retainer plus the $14,000 in additional billing. Here's what the settlement looked like. I kept the house. 4-bedroom Craftsman on Westwood Drive. Every wire, every pipe, every board in that house had my labor in it. The court saw it that way, too. I kept the business. Davenport Electric, LLC, was a premarital asset. Brooke's attorney tried to argue that marital earnings had contributed to its growth, and she was entitled to a share of the appreciation. Dale shut that down with 3 years of tax returns showing that every dollar of profit went back into the business. Trucks, tools, employee wages. Brooke never signed a check, never bid a job, never pulled a permit. The business was mine. I kept my retirement accounts, a SEPIRA, with about $220,000 that I'd been funding since my late 20s. I got primary custody. Dylan and Sophie lived with me during the school year. Same house, same school, same routine. Brooke got every other weekend, alternating holidays, and 2 weeks in summer. The custody arrangement was the part she fought hardest on and lost the worst on. Dale's argument was simple. Jack Davenport is the parent who is home every evening. Jack Davenport cooks dinner, helps with homework, maintains the household. Brooke Davenport, née Calloway, spent multiple evenings per week either at client functions or at a condo on Jackson Avenue with a man who was not her husband. The court agreed. Brooke got her 401k, $64,000, and her car. The Audi Q5 with 46 payments remaining at $642 a month. She got her personal belongings. She got no alimony, zero. Dale presented the evidence of adultery, and Brooke's attorney, who was a smart woman, didn't even fight it. In Tennessee, a spouse proven to have committed adultery can be barred from receiving alimony. That's the law. That's what happened. Brooke moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in West Knoxville. $1,400 a month on her salary of $72,000. It was fine. It was adequate. It had white walls and carpet and a parking lot view and not a single board in it that someone had laid with their own hands because they loved the woman who lived there. She went from Sequoia Hills to an apartment complex with a shared laundry room and a pool that closed in October. That's not cruelty. That's consequence. And Kevin? Brooke tried to make it work with him. About a month after the divorce was finalized, she drove to Chattanooga. Dylan told me this later. He'd heard it from Brooke's sister Wendy, who apparently couldn't keep her mouth shut, even when discretion would have served everyone's interests. Brooke showed up at Kevin's apartment. Kevin, who had lost his job and his professional reputation and was now writing ad copy for a Chevrolet dealership in Chattanooga, looked at Brooke and said he'd moved on. Moved on. The man she blew up her family for. The man she wrote anniversary cards to. The man whose condo she kept her perfume in. He'd moved on. She drove back to Knoxville alone. I heard about it, and my only reaction was, not my problem. Because it wasn't. She stopped being my problem the day I walked out of Unit 4B with a phone full of photographs. The kids? Dylan took it hard. Not loud hard. Quiet hard. The Davenport way. He went to school. He played baseball. He came home. He ate dinner. He did homework. He went to bed. He didn't talk about it. Didn't talk about his mom. Didn't talk about the divorce. He was a 14-year-old kid walking around with the weight of his family's collapse on his shoulders, and he handled it the way every man in our family has always handled pain, by grinding through it in silence. I tried to get him to open up. I'm not good at that. Nobody in my family is. We don't do heart-to-hearts. We do side-by-side. But I tried. 3 months after the divorce, on a Saturday afternoon, we were in the garage. I was teaching Dylan to wire a light switch, a simple single-pole 15-amp circuit. Basic stuff. He was stripping Romex with a pair of Klein strippers, concentrating on the cut, getting the jacket off without nicking the conductors. He was good with his hands, like his dad, like his grandpa. "Did you know she was going to do it?" he said. Didn't look up from the wire. I put down my own strippers. "No, buddy, I didn't." "Would you have stopped it if you could?" "I would have tried." He kept stripping the wire. His hands were steady. 14 years old and already had better hands than half my crew. I saw her texting once, he said. She was in the kitchen, late at night. She didn't know I was in the hallway. She was smiling at her phone the way she used to smile at you. I felt that one. Deep in my chest, under the ribs, the place where you keep the things that hurt the most. My son had seen it. My 14-year-old boy had stood in a dark hallway and watched his mother smile at another man's words, and he'd carried that by himself, for God knows how long, without saying a word to anyone. That wasn't your job to catch, Dylan. That was between me and your mom. I know. I just feel like I should have said something. Listen to me. You were a kid. You're still a kid. And I need you to hear this. Nothing that happened is on you. None of it. Not one piece. He nodded. Went back to the light switch. Wrapped the ground wire around the green screw, clockwise, the way I'd shown him. Tightened it down with a flathead. Perfect connection. We worked in silence for another hour. Wired the switch, connected the circuit, tested it with a voltage tester. The light came on. Dylan grinned. First real grin I'd seen from him in months. That's how Davenport men handle things. Side by side, hands busy. No eye contact required. It's not therapy, it works better. Sophie was different. Sophie was a bomb. She cried every night for the first week. Hard crying. The kind that makes your whole body shake. The kind that sounds like something inside is breaking. She'd come into my room at midnight, or 1 or 2 in the morning, and climb into my bed and put her face against my chest and cry until she fell asleep. I held her every time. I didn't have answers. I just had arms. Is Mommy coming home? Mommy has her own place now, baby. You'll see her on weekends. She loves you. I love you. And that part doesn't change. But why can't she live here? Because sometimes grown-ups make decisions that change things. And when that happens, the kids didn't cause it and the kids can't fix it. But the kids are still loved. By both of us. Always. That speech was inadequate. I knew it was inadequate while I was saying it. But what do you tell an 11-year-old? The truth? Your mom had a boyfriend and an apartment and a go bag in the trunk? No. You tell her what she needs to hear to get through the night, and then you tell her again the next night, and the night after that, until eventually the nights get easier, and she stops coming to your room and starts sleeping in her own bed again. Sophie adjusted. Kids are resilient. People say that like it's a comfort, and it is, but it's also a tragedy. Kids shouldn't have to be resilient. They should get to be soft. They should get to trust the world. My kids had that taken from them, and I will never fully forgive Brooke for it. Not the affair, I've let that go. But the look on Sophie's face at 2 in the morning, crying into my chest, asking why Mommy left, that I carry, that one doesn't get filed away. One night, about 2 months in, Sophie was sitting at the kitchen counter eating ice cream, mint chocolate chip, her favorite, and she looked at me with those big eyes. Did Mommy love someone else more than you? I thought about it for a long time. Sophie waited. She's patient when she wants to be, which isn't often, but when she locks onto something, she'll wait all night for the answer. Your mom made a mistake, a big one, but she loves you and Dylan more than anything. That's not what I asked, Dad. 11 years old and she cut right through it. No hedging, no politeness, no letting me off the hook. Just like her grandpa Hank. Direct. Unflinching. I'm going to be terrified of this girl when she's 18. Yeah, baby, for a while she did. Sophie nodded. Didn't cry. Just nodded and ate another bite of ice cream and went to bed. I sat at the counter and stared at the wall and thought about the fact that my 11-year-old daughter handled that information with more composure than most adults I know. The counselor. I have to tell you about the counselor. Brooke's attorney requested 1 joint counseling session as part of the custody negotiation. Dale told me to go. It looks good for the court, shows you're cooperative. Sit there for an hour, nod politely, and leave. I went. The counselor was Dr. Karen Shipley. Office in Turkey Creek, off Parkside Drive. Comfortable chairs, tissue box on every surface, a sound machine in the hallway that played ocean waves like we were all supposed to pretend we were at the beach instead of in a room where marriages go to die. Brooke was already there when I arrived. She looked thin, tired, Her blazer didn't fit the way it used to. She'd lost weight, the kind of weight loss that comes from stress, not from trying. Dr. Shipley started. Jack, thank you for being here. Brooke has expressed a sincere desire to work on the marriage. She's described feeling disconnected from you emotionally over the past several years. She's acknowledged the affair and has expressed deep remorse. Can you speak to your experience of the emotional distance in the marriage? I looked at Dr. Shipley. Mid-50s, glasses, a sweater with a collar. She had a notepad on her knee and a pen in her hand, and the kind of face that said she'd sat in this chair 1,000 times and heard 1,000 versions of this same story, and she already knew what she thought. I looked at Brooke. She was looking at her hands. I looked back at Dr. Shipley. My wife had a furnished apartment with another man, clothes in his closet, perfume on his dresser, a framed photo on his nightstand, a go bag in the trunk of the car I bought her with lingerie and a toothbrush. She wrote him an anniversary card celebrating 1 year of the affair. She didn't feel disconnected. She was fully connected, just not to me. Jack, I understand the pain of discovering we're done here. I stood up. Dr. Shipley's pen stopped moving. Brooke looked up at me, eyes wet. Jack, please. I said what I came to say. You can fill the rest of the hour however you want. I walked out. Down the hallway with the ocean sound machine, through the waiting room with the inspirational posters, into the parking lot, into my truck. I sat there for a minute, engine off, hands on the wheel. Steady. That was the only counseling session. Dale was pleased. Short, clear, and on the record. Perfect. Attorneys think in terms of transcripts. That's probably healthy for someone. Now I need to tell you about the aftermath that nobody expected. About 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I answer every call because in my line of work, an unknown number could be a new customer or a general contractor with a job to bid. This is Jack. Jack Davenport? My name is Heather Ashford. I'm Kevin's wife. Ex-wife's boyfriend's wife. That's a sentence I never expected to say out loud. I think we have something in common, she said. She wasn't wrong. Heather Ashford, née Morrison, was 37, a middle school teacher at Bearden Middle, and she'd been married to Kevin for 9 years. They had 2 daughters, Emma, 8, and Claire, 6. Heather found out about Kevin's affair the same way most people find out. Someone told her. In her case, it was a woman at Meridian Partners who worked under Kevin and felt that Heather deserved to know. People think these things stay secret. They never do. Secrets are just truths that haven't found the right mouth yet. I'm not calling to bond over this, Heather said. Her voice was steady. Tired, but steady. I just wanted to know if the photos you have, the ones from the condo, if you'd be willing to share them with my attorney. Give me the attorney's name. I'll have my lawyer send them over. Thank you. Heather? Yes? I'm sorry this happened to you. Yeah, me too. That was our whole conversation. Dale sent the evidence to Heather's attorney, a woman in Farragut whose name I've already forgotten. Within 3 months, Heather Ashford had filed for divorce, citing adultery, with photographic evidence from a condo that her husband thought was his private sanctuary. Kevin lost half his assets, which, after losing his job, weren't much. He lost primary custody of his daughters. He was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Chattanooga, writing ads for car dealerships, paying child support and alimony to a woman he'd humiliated. I didn't feel bad for him. I didn't feel good about it either. I just felt like the scoreboard was accurate. Everybody who cheated, everybody who lied, everybody who treated a marriage like a suggestion rather than a commitment, they paid. Not because I made them pay, because that's what happens when you pull live wires without respect for the current. You get shocked. A year went by, the worst year of my life, and I say that including the year my mother left. Because when you're 7, you don't fully understand what's happening. When you're 43, you understand exactly what happened, and you have to live inside that understanding every single day. I worked, I raised my kids, I ate dinner at the kitchen table with Dylan and Sophie every night. I made chocolate chip pancakes on Saturday mornings. I coached Dylan through a growth spurt that added 3 inches and threw off his batting stance. We spent 6 weekends at the batting cages on Kingston Pike until he found his swing again. I watched Sophie try out for the school play and get a part. Third witch in the 6th grade production of a kid-friendly Macbeth. She was magnificent. She delivered double toil and trouble with the conviction of a woman sending a hex. I sat in the front row and clapped until my hands hurt. I didn't date. I didn't want to. I wasn't nursing a broken heart. I was running a business and raising 2 kids and rewiring houses, and there wasn't room for anything else. Some nights after the kids went to bed, I'd sit on the deck with a maker's mark and listen to the neighborhood settle. Dogs barking. Sprinklers running. The couple 3 doors down arguing about something through their open windows. Normal life going on all around me while mine was held together with duct tape and routine. On Friday nights, Hank Jr. would come over and we'd sit on that deck together not talking. Just 2 divorced Davenport men sharing a porch and a bottle. He never asked how I was doing. I never asked him. We didn't need to. We were doing the same thing our father did. Showing up, doing the work, keeping the lights on. It's not glamorous. It's not a healing journey. It's just what Davenport men do. Then October came and the Vols were playing Alabama and Hank Jr. had tickets. We were at Neyland Stadium, 102,000 people. The noise in that place is something you feel in your fillings. We were in the upper deck, section PP, row 40-something, and it was one of those perfect October days in Knoxville. 65 degrees, not a cloud. The river sparkling below the stadium. I went to get beers at halftime. The line was long. It's always long. I was standing behind a guy in an Alabama jersey who was getting heckled by every person within earshot, which he seemed to enjoy, when a woman in a Vols jersey bumped into me from the side and sloshed half her beer onto my boots. Oh shit, I'm so sorry. I looked down at my boots. Justin Roper's, brown, scuffed, the ones I wear when I'm not working. Now, with a puddle of Bud Light on the left toe. Those are my good boots, I said. She looked at my boots. Then, at me. Late 30s. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup except maybe chapstick. A Vols jersey that had been washed so many times the orange was fading toward salmon. She had a gap between her front teeth and a sunburn on her nose, and she was grinning at me like she'd just pulled the best prank of the day. Those are your good boots? They look like you've been wearing them since the Clinton administration. First term or second? Does it matter? Second term was a lot harder on boots. She laughed. A real laugh. Too loud. Didn't cover her mouth. And something in my chest that had been closed for a year, bolted shut, breaker off, circuit dead, flickered. I'm Maggie. Jack. Jack, I owe you a beer. Let me buy you one. You just spilled yours. Then you'll have to buy me one too. We'll call it even. Her name was Maggie Bowen. She was 38, ER nurse at UT Medical Center, which meant she worked 12-hour shifts dealing with car accidents and heart attacks and drunk college kids who fell off rooftops. She'd been divorced for 2 years. Her ex-husband was a pharmaceutical rep named Scott, who loved his expense account more than his family and left her for a 28-year-old colleague in Nashville. No kids. She grew up in Maryville, played softball at Maryville College, shortstop, and still played in a Thursday night rec league. We watched the second half together. She knew football. Not in the way some women know football, where they learn a few terms to be polite. She knew formations, she knew play-calling tendencies, she yelled at the offensive coordinator by name. The Vols lost by 3 on a missed field goal in the 4th quarter. She said a word that would have gotten her thrown out of Sunday school and then immediately apologized to the family sitting in front of us. After the game, we walked along Neyland Drive. The sun was going down and the river was gold, and the streets were full of people in orange who were either celebrating or drowning their sorrows, depending on which side they were on. So you're one of those people who actually does stuff, I said. I hate sitting still. Sitting still is for dead people. What about you? What do you do? I'm an electrician. Like change a light bulb electrician? Like I own a company with 14 guys and we've wired half the new construction in Knox County. Oh, she nodded slowly. So you're the reason my apartment outlets are crooked. That was a plumber. We don't make that mistake. She laughed. I laughed. It was the first time I'd made a woman laugh in over a year. Not the first time I'd laughed. I laughed with my kids, with my crew, with Hank Jr. But making a woman laugh is a different thing. It's a light coming on in a room that's been dark for so long you forgot there was a switch. I didn't get her number that night. I got her number and a date for Thursday to come watch her softball game. She played in a rec league at a park in South Knoxville. A bunch of nurses and paramedics and firefighters who drank beer before the game and more beer after. She played shortstop and she was good. Quick hands, good range, threw across the diamond with a snap that said she'd been doing this since she was old enough to hold a glove. After the game, she was sweaty and dirty and sitting on the tailgate of her Tacoma, a 2018 silver with a scratch on the bumper and a coexist sticker she was embarrassed about and kept meaning to peel off, drinking a Yuengling from a cooler. So, are you going to ask me to dinner, or do I have to spill beer on you again? I took her to Stock and Barrel on Market Square. She ordered a bourbon burger and a Basil Hayden's neat. I ordered the same. She told me about the ER, the worst night she ever had, the funniest patient she ever treated, the time a guy came in with a fork stuck in his thigh and swore he fell on it. People always say they fell on it, she said. Nobody ever admits they were doing something stupid. I told her about the electrical business, the chicken coop I wired for $40, the junction box that arced and burned my arm, the time I accidentally drilled through a sewer pipe on a remodel and the homeowner's reaction, which involved words I won't repeat. We stayed until closing. The waiter came by 3 times with the check before we noticed. I should tell you something, she said in the parking lot. All right. My ex-husband did a number on me. I'm not over it. I'm mostly over it. But there are days when I'm not, and I need you to know that up front because I don't like surprises and I don't think you do either. My ex-wife had an affair for at least a year, kept an apartment with the guy. I found out because my crew was rewiring the apartment. She stared at me. You're kidding. I'm not. That's... She shook her head. That's horrible and also kind of unbelievable. It's Knoxville. You can't get away with anything in this town. Well, she took a breath. At least we both know what we're dealing with. At least. She kissed me in the parking lot. Quick, on the cheek, then pulled back to see how I'd react. I didn't react. She kissed me again. This time not on the cheek. And I kissed her back. And for the first time in over a year, the circuit in my chest that had been dead was live again. Maggie met the kids 2 months later. I wasn't in a hurry and neither was she. We dated like adults. Dinner, movies, a Vols basketball game, a few hikes. She didn't push for more. She didn't ask about the divorce details. She didn't try to fix me. She just showed up and was herself and that was enough. When she met Dylan and Sophie, it was at the house, on a Saturday, for a casual lunch. Nothing formal. Maggie showed up in jeans and a UT hoodie with a bag of Chick-fil-A, because I'd told her that was Sophie's favorite. Dylan was polite, distant, testing. He shook Maggie's hand and said, "Nice to meet you," and then went to his room for 20 minutes. Classic Dylan, retreating to observe from a safe distance. When he came back, he sat at the far end of the table and ate his chicken sandwich without participating in the conversation. Maggie didn't force it. She didn't try to be his friend. She didn't ask him about school or baseball or any of the questions that adults ask teenagers when they're trying too hard. She just let him be. It took about a month for Dylan to warm up. The turning point was a Tuesday night when Maggie came over for dinner and Dylan was struggling with a history paper. Maggie looked at it over his shoulder, not because he asked, but because she was walking past, and said, "You've got the thesis in the wrong place. Put your strongest argument first." She said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather, and then walked away. Dylan stared at the paper, moved the thesis, got a B+ on it. After that, he started saying hi to her when she came over. For Dylan, that was basically a declaration of love. Sophie was easier. Sophie liked Maggie immediately because Maggie taught her how to throw a changeup. They were in the backyard, Maggie with a glove she'd brought from her own gear bag, showing Sophie the grip, middle and ring fingers on top, tucked against the inside of the ball, thumbs underneath. Sophie threw it 6 times and by the 7th it had movement. She screamed and ran to me. "Dad, did you see that? It moved." I saw it. Maggie taught me in like 5 minutes. Mom never threw a ball with me. She said it without malice, just a fact. But it landed on me the way facts do sometimes when they illuminate something you didn't want to see. Brooke never threw a ball with Sophie. I did. My dad did. Hank Jr. did. But her mother, the woman who was supposed to be there, supposed to be present, supposed to be throwing balls in the backyard, was at client dinners, or at a condo on Jackson Avenue, or somewhere else that wasn't here. Maggie didn't try to be their mom. She was smart about that. She was Maggie. She showed up, she was kind, she didn't perform. She watched Dylan's baseball games and cheered without being obnoxious. She took Sophie shopping for a softball glove and let Sophie pick one that was neon green, a color that no serious player would choose because Sophie wanted it, and Maggie understood that sometimes the neon green glove is the whole point. The family reconfigured. That's what happens after a divorce. The pieces resettle, and some of the old pieces don't fit anymore, and some new ones show up where you didn't expect them. Brooke's mother, Linda, stopped calling me after our one conversation. That was fine. Brooke's sister, Wendy, who'd sent me the both sides text, showed up at the house 8 months after the divorce to pick up some of Sophie's clothes for a weekend at Brooke's. She stood on the porch and said, "I just want you to know I think Brooke was wrong. I know what I texted you before and I was wrong. She's my sister and I love her, but what she did was wrong." I looked at Wendy for a moment. She was nervous. She'd probably rehearsed this speech in the car. "I appreciate that, Wendy. I should have said it sooner." "Yeah, you should have," she flinched. But she took it. She nodded and went inside to get Sophie's clothes, and that was the last real conversation Wendy and I ever had. We wave at each other now. It's enough. My crew at Davenport Electric, those 14 men, never said a word. Not one. Luis knew the story, and I'm sure he told a few guys because that's what people do. But none of them brought it up. What they did was show up. They showed up early for jobs. They did clean work. They didn't complain about overtime. After the divorce, my guys pulled together in a way that said everything they needed to say without opening their mouths. That's the kind of loyalty you can't buy. You can only earn it. Travis, my younger brother, called from Memphis where he worked as a welder. "I heard. You okay?" "I'm okay." "You need me to come up there?" "For what?" "I don't know. Hit someone. Drink whiskey. Both." "I've got the whiskey covered. Nobody needs to hit anyone." "All right, but the offer stands." Travis is the wild one, the one who talks to mom, the one who got in bar fights in his 20s and settled down in his 30s. He doesn't think like Hank Jr. and me. He feels first and thinks later. I love him for it, even though it drives me crazy. 3 years after the divorce. I'm sitting on the back deck of the house on Westwood Drive. It's October. The leaves in Sequoia Hills are turning, gold and red and that deep orange that only East Tennessee can pull off. I'm drinking a Maker's Mark. Maggie is inside making chili. I can smell it through the screen door. Sophie is at the kitchen table doing homework. Dylan is in the garage. I can hear the radio, country music, which means he's working on something with his hands. 3 years. I'm 46. Davenport Electric has 18 employees now. We landed the electrical contract for a new hospital wing at UT Medical Center, a $1.8 million job, the biggest in company history. Maggie joked that she pulled strings from the inside. I told her the only thing she pulled was my leg. We got it because our bids are fair, our work is clean, and we show up when we say we will. In construction, that's rarer than it should be. Maggie moved in last year. She kept her apartment for 3 months after she officially moved in. "Just in case," she said, which I understood and pretended not to notice. One day a key appeared on the kitchen counter and that was that. No ceremony, no big conversation. Just a key on a counter and 2 people who decided, quietly, that this was home. We're not married. I'm not in a hurry. I did the marriage thing, I told Dad. If I do it again, I'll be sure. Hank Sr. nodded. Smart. That was the whole conversation. Dylan is 17, junior at West High, starting pitcher on the varsity baseball team, 2.8 ERA, nasty slider, the kind of kid who makes the other team's coach check the lineup card twice. He wants to study construction management at UT. He told me last month, sitting in the truck after a game, "I want to work with you after college, at the company. You'll start as an apprentice, like everybody else. He grinned. A real grin. The kind I didn't see for months after the divorce. The kind that's come back slowly like light returning after a long winter. I wouldn't have it any other way. Sophie is 14. She is loud. She is opinionated. She plays catcher on the JV softball team. Maggie taught her to catch, taught her the stance, taught her how to frame a pitch so the umpire gives you the corner. Sophie blocks balls in the dirt like she's personally offended by them. She recently informed me that she's going to need a car in 2 years. You need a job first. I already applied at Chick-fil-A. When? Last week. I filled out the application online. I have an interview on Saturday. The kid doesn't miss a beat. She is going to run something someday. A business, a city, a country. I just hope I'm around to see it. Brooke works at a smaller agency now. A 2-person shop that does social media for local restaurants and dentists' offices. It pays less than Meridian. She lives in the same apartment in West Knoxville. She's dating someone, a divorced dad she met through the kids' school. Dylan says he's all right. Sophie calls him mom's friend and has zero interest in further detail. Brooke and I are civil at school events. We sit in different sections at Dylan's games. We nod at each other in the parking lot. We communicate about schedules through text, short, factual, businesslike. She doesn't ask me about my life and I don't ask about hers. That's not animosity. It's the absence of anything that requires conversation. The anniversary card. To my favorite escape, 1 year, here's to many more. I kept it in my desk at the shop for a year. Not as a trophy, not as motivation. I'm not even sure why I kept it. Maybe the same reason you keep a blown fuse, as a reminder of what happens when the load exceeds the capacity. One day I threw it in the trash. Tuesday morning, between coffee and a phone call from a supplier about a back-ordered panel. I picked it up, looked at it, felt nothing, and dropped it in the garbage can next to the desk. It went out with the rest of the trash on Wednesday. That was it. No ceremony, no moment of closure. Just a man throwing away a piece of cardboard that used to mean something and didn't anymore. That's when I knew I was done carrying it. Kevin Ashford is in Chattanooga. I don't know what he does. I don't care. The condo on Jackson Avenue was sold. The new owner is a dentist named Dr. Patel who seems like a nice guy. My company did not bid on any future electrical work in the Emory building. Some buildings, like some memories, you just don't go back to. Last thing. Hank Sr. came to Dylan's first varsity start. It was a Tuesday night game against Farragut. The lights at the field were on. LED retrofits, the kind my company installs, which I noticed because once you're an electrician, you can't look at a light fixture without evaluating the installation. Dylan was on the mound, 6'1" now, built like a man, throwing a fastball that topped out at 84. Hank Sr. sat behind home plate with me and Maggie and Sophie. He was 71. He'd gotten smaller in the last few years. Not weaker, just compressed, like a man who'd carried so much weight for so long that gravity had claimed a few inches. He wore a Vols cap and a flannel jacket, and he watched every pitch without blinking. Dylan threw 6 innings of 2-hit ball. Struck out 8. Walked 1. The one walk bothered him. I could see it in his jaw. He wanted the perfect game. He didn't get it. He'll learn that perfection isn't the point. Showing up is the point. Throwing the next pitch is the point. After the game, the boys mobbed Dylan on the mound. Sophie was screaming in the stands, a sound that could shatter glass and probably did somewhere in the parking lot. Maggie was clapping and grinning. Hank Sr. was quiet. We walked to the parking lot together. The kids ran ahead. Maggie went to start the truck. Hank Sr. and I were alone under the lights, the field behind us emptying out, the sprinklers coming on. He stopped walking, put his hand on my arm, looked at me. You did good with those kids. Thanks, Dad. Your mother would have ruined them. You didn't let that happen twice. I stood there. 39 years. In 39 years, Hank Davenport Sr. had never said more than 2 sentences about the woman who left him. Never blamed her in front of us. Never explained. Never let us see the wound. And here, in a parking lot in West Knoxville, with the sprinklers hissing and his grandson's teammates honking their car horns in celebration, he said the most he would ever say. You didn't let that happen twice. That was it. That was the whole thing. That's what every Davenport man has been trying to do since 1987. When a woman walked out of a house on Lonis Drive and left a note on an oak table and 3 boys who didn't understand why. I understood now. I understood what my father did. I understood the silence, the stoicism, the steady hands. He wasn't cold. He wasn't unfeeling. He was a man who decided that his boys would not be defined by what happened to them, and he held that line for 39 years without once asking for recognition or sympathy or even a thank you. Come on, Dad, let's go get some dinner. I could eat. We walked to the truck. Maggie had the engine running and the heat on. Sophie was in the back seat already arguing with Dylan about whether his slider was better than his changeup. Dylan was pretending to ignore her. The parking lot was emptying out. The lights on the field clicked off. Timer controlled, probably a Lutron system, 8-gauge wire to the pole. I noticed. You always notice. I drove my family home. My father in the front seat, my kids in the back, Maggie beside them. Through the streets of Knoxville, past the shops and the churches and the houses with their porch lights on, every light a circuit someone wired, every circuit a connection someone made, every connection holding because someone gave a damn enough to do it right. I thought about the house on Westwood Drive, the wires in the walls, the circuits in the panel, every one of them run by my hands, tested by my hands, carrying current through a house that was full again. Full in a different way than before. A better way, steadier. My hands were on the wheel, my hands were steady, they always are. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, so subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.